Welcome, friends, to another exciting episode of A VGM Journey, and I'm your host, The Messenger. The track that we're playing in today's show is Gigs on Penny from the game Penny's Big Breakaway, and that was composed by T. Lopes. We're getting back into the normal video game music and not the remixes that I played in the last episode, which I did get a lot of good feedback for that, so thank you guys for that. And I also got a bunch of more recent tracks that I've been wanting to play, and this is some really good stuff, so let's get into it. We're going to kick things off with Khaoseum from Mortal Kombat 1, specifically the Chaos Reigns DLC for it, and this was composed by Blue Stahli. That track that you just heard, that was Khaoseum from the game Mortal Kombat 1, Chaos Reigns, and this was composed by Blue Stahli. When this DLC came out for Mortal Kombat 1, I was going into it with the expectations of having a good time with the new story and the new characters and the new stages, which I will say is pretty good. And I was having little to no expectations when it came to the music, only because I think the main game itself had, I would say, decent music. I know it's been kind of a polarizing soundtrack. I think a lot of people don't really like the soundtrack for Mortal Kombat 1, and I could kind of agree with them, but there are some good tracks on it. And when I was playing this, the music just came in and it just hit me hard. It was a lot more rocking than I was expecting. And I had to stop and think to myself, like, man, this is some really good stuff. Why is this so good? And this almost reminds me of Mick Gordon's soundtrack for Killer Instinct, which I guess if you were to emulate something in a fighting game, I mean, that's a good soundtrack to emulate. And I was looking in the comments on YouTube, and a lot of people were saying that it definitely reminds them of the music from the, I would say, the PlayStation 2 era of Mortal Kombat, the 3D fighters, specifically Mortal Kombat Deception, which I will say that game is pretty good. And I do wonder if future entries in this series will go in this music direction. So I think that would be pretty cool. I think now's a good time to move on to our next track, and this one is a request coming from producer of the show, Carly. And she wanted me to play the track Ride or Fry from the game Splatoon 3, and this was composed by Toru Minegishi. That track that you just heard, that was Ride or Fry from the game Splatoon 3. It was composed by Toru Minegishi, and this was a request by Carly. So thank you, Carly, for that request. I will admit that I don't have too much experience with Splatoon. I mean, I've kind of dabbled in the first game a little bit, but I haven't touched the second or third games. And when it comes to the music, for whatever reason, I more associate it with a more punk rock style. But then Carly has to request a track like this, and it's nothing like that at all. And if anything, it just sounds like a Daft Punk song, which is no problem whatsoever. That is some good stuff. If I were to have one complaint with the track, it's that I wish it was longer and there was a little more to it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think this is really good, but it just seems too short to me. But then again, it does go for a house music style, and usually with house music, it's a lot of repetition. So I guess in a way, maybe I was just wishing that it was in a slightly different genre. But anyway, this was a fantastic request, so thank you for that again, Carly. I think we're going to bring the energy way down with this next track, and this is coming from The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. This is Suthorn Village, and I don't really have a composer breakdown for tracks, but the entire game is credited to Masato Ohashi, Manaka Kataoka, Chisaki Hosaka, Reika Nakai, Yuri Goto, Ryotaro Yagi, and Azusa Kato. That track that you just heard, that was Suthorn Village from the game The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. And it was composed by possibly by a whole bunch of people from Nintendo. I'm not reading all those names again. I've been playing this game quite a bit, and it's not really all that surprising that the game itself is really good. And it's a game that I'm sure a lot of people have been waiting for a real long time, where it's a Zelda game, a mainline Zelda game, where you play as Princess Zelda. And it would have really sucked if the game itself was terrible, but it's not. It's quite the opposite. I think it's pretty fantastic. And the soundtrack itself, it's really good too. And what was funny was I was trying to pick between a few different songs from the game, and Carly was happening to be hearing the music as I was listening to them. And she said that this track makes her want to cry just because of how, I guess, melancholic it sounds. And that she just definitely gets this whole living at home kind of vibe from it. And I definitely hear that. And in the context of the game, it does make sense because this is one of the first locations that you go to. And it's also the home of Link in the game. So it definitely has that going for it. I will admit that I haven't really dove too deep into the soundtrack just because I'm wanting to avoid being spoiled on anything. And I'm pretty sure that I've already went through the first half of the game, so a lot of the earlier tracks I'm very familiar with, and I gotta say, it's some really good stuff, so I'm hoping that the second half is just as good. So I'm definitely gonna play some more stuff from the game in the future, and who knows, I might even talk about spoilers, so watch out for that. I probably brought the vibe of the show just down a little too much there, so I say let's bring it back up with this next track. And this is coming from Saturday Morning RPG. The track is Legacy, and this was composed by Vince DiCola. That track that you just heard, that was Legacy from the game Saturday Morning RPG, and that was composed by Vince DiCola. And that's going to just about do it for the show today. If you like what you've been listening to, have your friends check out the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and even TerraPlayer, which is the home for various different video game and video game music podcasts. You can email the show at vgmjourney@yahoo.com, and you could also check us out on X at vgmjourney. We also have a Discord server for the show, which I'll provide a link for that in the show notes, where you could hang out with your fellow VGM journeymen and talk about games, music, and even look at some cool art. We're also going to play things out with one more track, and that is Good Night from the game Gimmick, and it was composed by Masashi Kageyama. Have a good one, everyone.